The elderly veteran reached for his wallet. Then his face changed. And the black waitress standing beside him knew immediately what had happened. A few hours later, a black limousine would pull into the diner's parking lot looking for her. But at that moment, Jasmine Reed was only thinking about rent. The dinner rush had finally ended. Most of the booths sat empty. Coffee machines hummed softly behind the counter. A country song played somewhere overhead. The kind nobody really listened to. Jasmine wiped down a table and glanced toward the clock. 9:37 p.m. Later than she'd hoped. Her daughter would already be asleep by the time she got home. Again. That thought always bothered her. No matter how many times it happened. At 29, Jasmine's life ran on exhaustion. Not because she wanted it to. Because it had to. Working as a waitress in a small Texas diner wasn't enough to support a child. Not anymore. So she picked up extra shifts. Covered weekends. Stayed late. Arrived early. And somehow still found herself behind. The rent payment sat 4 days overdue. The transmission in her Honda sounded worse every week. And Ava needed new glasses. The old pair kept sliding down her nose. Jasmine knew because she'd spent the previous evening tightening the screws with a kitchen knife. Some parents bought toys. Some bought vacations. Jasmine repaired eyeglasses at midnight. Life looked different depending on your bank account. Near the back of the diner, booth 7 remained occupied. One customer. An older man. Gray hair. Weathered hands. A neatly folded jacket resting beside him. He'd arrived alone nearly an hour earlier. Ordered the meatloaf special. Drank 2 cups of coffee. Spoke very little. The American flag pin attached to his lapel suggested military service. Beyond that, Jasmine knew almost nothing about him. Still, something about the man reminded her of her father. Maybe the posture. Maybe the quiet dignity. Maybe the way he thanked people. Some people carry respect naturally. The veteran seemed like one of them. Jasmine approached carrying the check. "Whenever you're ready, sir." The older man nodded politely. "Thank you." Simple words. Simple moment. Nothing unusual. At least not yet. Jasmine returned to the counter. Finished stacking menus. Counted tips. Answered a question from the cook. Then noticed movement near booth 7. The veteran was checking his pockets. Again. Then again. His expression tightened. Not panic. Not frustration. Something worse. Embarrassment. The realization hit Jasmine immediately. She'd seen that look before. Many times. Customers trying to calculate what they could afford. People searching for money that wasn't there. Parents pretending everything was fine in front of their children. The veteran checked his wallet one more time. Nothing changed. His shoulders lowered slightly. Only slightly. But enough. Enough for someone paying attention. Jasmine walked over. Not quickly. Not slowly. Just naturally. Giving him room. Giving him dignity. "Everything okay?" The man looked up. For a moment, he seemed unsure what to say. Then he exhaled. A tired breath. The kind that carries more weight than words. "I think I've made a mistake." His voice sounded smaller than before. Jasmine glanced toward the check. $12.83. Not a fortune. Yet not nothing. The veteran removed a wristwatch. Old. Scratched. Well cared for. He placed it carefully on the table. "I can leave this until tomorrow." The sentence landed hard. Not because of the watch. Because of the pride behind it. This wasn't someone trying to avoid responsibility. Quite the opposite. He was trying to protect what little pride remained. Jasmine thought about the cash folded inside her apron. Not much. Certainly not enough. But enough to cover the meal. The problem was that money already belonged somewhere else. Part of it was supposed to go toward rent. Part toward gas. Part toward groceries. Every dollar had an assignment waiting. Every dollar mattered. For a brief moment, logic spoke first. You can't help everybody. You're struggling too. Someone else will figure it out. Reasonable thoughts. Practical thoughts. Then another image appeared. Her father. Years ago. Sitting alone after returning from a hospital appointment. Looking older than he wanted anyone to notice. Jasmine remembered how quickly pride can become loneliness. And loneliness can become something worse. The decision arrived quietly. Without debate. Without drama. Without hesitation. She picked up the check. It's taken care of. The veteran frowned. Clearly confused. What do you mean? Jasmine smiled. The same smile she gave nervous customers and tired truck drivers. The same smile she gave people who needed a little grace. It means you don't need to worry about it. The older man stared at her. Not speaking. Not moving. As though trying to understand what had just happened. Finally he shook his head. No. A pause. You shouldn't do that. Jasmine shrugged lightly. It's already done. Silence settled between them. A comfortable silence. The kind that doesn't need filling. Then the veteran asked something unexpected. Why? The question sounded genuine. Not polite. Not rhetorical. Genuine. As though kindness had become unfamiliar. Jasmine glanced toward the window. Darkness covered the parking lot. The long day had drained every ounce of energy she possessed. Yet her answer came easily. Because everybody has a rough day sometimes. The veteran lowered his eyes briefly. When he looked up again, something had changed. Not dramatically. Just enough. Enough for gratitude to become visible. Thank you. This time the words carried weight. Real weight. Jasmine nodded. Then returned to work. A few minutes later, the veteran stood. Collected his jacket. Placed the watch back on his wrist. And walked toward the exit. Before leaving, he looked back once. Only once. Long enough to memorize her face. Long enough to remember her name tag. Jasmine. Then he disappeared into the Texas night. Jasmine watched the door close. And thought that was the end of it. Just another shift. Just another customer. Just another small act of kindness. She had no way of knowing that the man who had just walked out wasn't ordinary. And she certainly couldn't imagine what would be waiting outside the diner the following morning. Jasmine didn't think about the veteran again until she got home. By then, it was almost 11 o'clock. The apartment sat quiet. The television was off. The kitchen light remained on. Ava had fallen asleep. At the table while coloring. One crayon still rested in her hand. Jasmine smiled despite her exhaustion. Then carefully carried her daughter to bed. The 7-year-old barely stirred. Just enough to mumble something about school. Then drift back into sleep. For a few moments, Jasmine stood there watching. Those were her favorite moments. The peaceful ones. The moments that reminded her why she kept going. Because some days felt like a marathon she never finished. Every bill paid created another bill. Every problem solved uncovered a new one. Yet somehow, seeing Ava asleep made everything feel manageable. At least for a little while. Later, Jasmine sat alone at the kitchen table. 3 unopened envelopes waited beside her. Rent. Electricity. Auto repair. The usual collection. She stared at them. Then pushed them aside. Not tonight. There wasn't enough energy left for bad news. Instead, she poured herself a glass of water and looked out the window. Across the parking lot, a few apartment lights still glowed. People living ordinary lives. People carrying problems she knew nothing about. The thought made her think about the veteran again. The embarrassment on his face. The watch. The way he'd looked at her after she paid the bill. As if kindness had surprised him. That part stayed with her. Most people appreciated help. The old man had looked almost shocked by it. Eventually sleep won. The night passed quietly. And 40 miles away, Walter Hayes sat in a study lined with photographs. Military photographs. Family photographs. Memories collected across 7 decades. A lamp illuminated the room. Everything else remained dark. Walter held a cup of coffee in one hand. A photograph in the other. His late wife smiled back from the frame. She had been gone nearly 6 years. Some days felt easier than others. This wasn't one of them. Loss changes people. Not always loudly. Sometimes it changes where they travel. Who they notice. What they value. After his wife passed away, Walter stopped attending most public events. Stopped giving speeches. Stopped appearing in newspapers. Instead, he spent his time visiting small towns. Roadside diners. Family restaurants. Quiet places. Where nobody knew his name. His son David never fully understood it. Until that night. David entered the study carrying a tablet. Couldn't sleep. Walter smiled. Not yet. His son sat across from him. Then noticed the expression on his father's face. Something had happened. That much was obvious. What are you thinking about? Walter leaned back. A waitress. David laughed. A waitress? The older man nodded. Then told him everything. The diner. The bill. The watch. The $12. The young woman who helped without hesitation. David listened quietly. When the story ended, he smiled. Sounds like a decent person. Walter looked toward the window. Then slowly shook his head. No. David frowned. No. Walter's eyes softened. Decent would have been feeling bad for me. A pause. She sacrificed something she needed. The distinction mattered. A lot. Because Walter knew something Jasmine didn't. $12 meant almost nothing to him. But to somebody struggling, that same amount could mean gas. Groceries. Lunch money. The veteran folded his hands together. I've met people with millions who would have walked away. The room fell quiet. David understood exactly what his father meant. Character reveals itself when nobody expects a reward. Walter smiled faintly. She reminded me of your mother. That answer surprised him. Very few people received that comparison. Very few. His son glanced toward the photograph on the desk. Then back at his father. What do you want to do? Walter didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his pocket and removed a folded receipt. The diner receipt. The one he'd kept before leaving. At the bottom sat a handwritten name. Jasmine. The veteran looked at it for several seconds. Then finally spoke. I want to know who she is. The next morning arrived earlier than expected. Jasmine's alarm rang at 5:30. Darkness still covered most of the city. The coffee maker sputtered awake. Ava complained about getting out of bed. Normal morning. Normal routine. Nothing unusual. At least that's what Jasmine believed. By 7 o'clock she had dropped Ava off at school and headed toward work. The old Honda rattled slightly as she drove. Every strange noise made her nervous. Every strange noise sounded expensive. The diner appeared ahead. Then she noticed something strange. Very strange. A long black vehicle occupied 3 parking spaces near the entrance. Jasmine slowed. Maybe a celebrity was passing through town. Maybe a politician. Maybe a wedding party. All possibilities seemed more reasonable than the truth. The limousine looked completely out of place. Like someone had parked Wall Street in front of a family diner. Jasmine pulled into her usual spot. Turned off the engine. And stared. For several seconds she simply sat there. Trying to understand what she was seeing. Then the front door burst open. Her manager hurried outside. Much faster than normal. His expression looked somewhere between confused and terrified. Neither inspired confidence. Jasmine stepped from the car. What happened? The manager glanced toward the limousine. Then back toward her. People are asking for you. She laughed. Certain she had heard him wrong. Me? Specifically you. The answer made even less sense. Jasmine looked toward the entrance. Several men in dark suits were visible through the front window. Waiting. Watching. One of them appeared to notice her arrival. Immediately he stood. The others followed. Jasmine felt her stomach tighten. Not fear exactly. Just uncertainty. The kind that appears before receiving unexpected news. Good or bad. There was no way to know which. Her manager lowered his voice. I think they're important. That wasn't helpful. Not even a little. Jasmine took a slow breath. Then started toward the diner. Completely unaware that the man she had helped less than 12 hours earlier was about to reveal a secret nobody in town expected. The moment Jasmine stepped through the diner's front door, every conversation seemed to stop. Not completely. Just enough to notice. Forks paused halfway to plates. Coffee cups hovered in midair. Even the morning regulars looked unusually interested. That alone told her something was different. Very different. The men in suits stood near booth 7. The same booth where Walter Hayes had sat the night before. One of them smiled politely. Another checked his watch. A third appeared to be reviewing paperwork. Jasmine immediately wondered if she was about to get fired. Not because it made sense. Because anxiety rarely does. Years of financial stress had trained her to expect bad news first. Good news usually arrived by accident. Bad news scheduled appointments. Her manager touched her shoulder. You okay? No. The honesty surprised both of them. He laughed. Fair enough. Before either could say another word, the entrance opened. Walter Hayes walked inside. The room changed instantly. Not because he demanded attention. Because the men around him clearly respected him. The difference was impossible to miss. One man moved his chair. Another opened a folder. A third greeted him with a nod. Walter smiled when he saw Jasmine. The same calm smile from the previous evening. Only now it carried a different weight. Not mystery. Recognition. Good morning. Jasmine stared. Then glanced at the limousine outside. Then back at Walter. I think I'm missing part of this story. A few people nearby chuckled. Walter laughed softly. That's understandable. He motioned toward an empty chair. Would you sit for a minute? Jasmine looked toward her manager. The manager immediately nodded. Take all the time you need. That answer felt suspicious. Very suspicious. Still, she sat. Walter settled across from her. David occupied the chair beside him. The remaining men stepped back, giving the conversation room to breathe. For a moment nobody spoke. Walter seemed to be choosing his words carefully. Finally he folded his hands together. "Last night you helped me." Jasmine shrugged. "You were short $12. The veteran smiled. It wasn't about the $12. The answer arrived immediately. As though he'd been thinking about it all night. Walter leaned slightly forward. "When people believe you're struggling, they show you who they really are." The statement hung in the air. Simple. Yet meaningful. Jasmine remained quiet. Walter continued. "I visit places where nobody knows me." A pause. Small towns. Cafes. Diners. Another pause. "I like seeing how people treat strangers." Now the room had her full attention. The veteran looked around briefly. Then back at her. "Most people are polite." A faint smile appeared. "Some are generous." The smile faded. "A few are cruel." Nobody interrupted. Not even the customers pretending not to listen. Walter's voice softened. "Yesterday, I wasn't worried about paying for lunch." Jasmine frowned. Confused. The veteran nodded toward the limousine outside. Toward the men in suits. Toward the entire situation. Then he revealed the truth. "I own the organization those gentlemen work for." Silence. Complete silence. The sentence landed like a thunderclap. Jasmine blinked. Once. Twice. Certain she had misunderstood. David opened a folder. Inside sat photographs. News articles. Awards. Community projects. Veteran housing developments. Scholarship programs. Fundraising events. The same face appeared again and again. Walter Hayes. Younger in some photographs. Older in others. But unmistakably the same man. Jasmine stared at the images. Then at Walter. Then back at the folder. Her brain struggled to catch up. "You own all this?" Walter smiled. "Not exactly." A pause. "I started it." The distinction felt important to him. The organization had helped thousands of military families throughout Texas. Housing assistance. Medical support. Employment programs. Education grants. Years of work. Years of service. Years spent helping people rebuild their lives. And somehow the founder had ended up sitting alone in a roadside diner eating meatloaf. The contrast seemed impossible. Yet there he was. Walter noticed her expression. "I know." The veteran laughed. "It sounds strange." "A little." That answer made everyone smile. Even Jasmine. The tension eased slightly. Then Walter became serious again. "After my wife passed away, things changed." The room quieted. Grief has a way of doing that. His eyes drifted toward the window. As though looking through memories nobody else could see. She spent her entire life helping people. A pause. And she believed character matters more than success. Another pause. "So after she was gone, I started paying attention." His fingers tapped the table once. Softly. Not to accomplishments. A small shake of his head. To people. Jasmine listened carefully. Because she could hear something deeper beneath the words. The veteran wasn't talking about business. He wasn't talking about money. He was talking about loneliness. About loss. About searching for something worth believing in. Walter looked directly at her. "Last night you had every reason to walk away." Jasmine lowered her eyes. The truth was uncomfortable. Because he wasn't wrong. Rent was overdue. The car was failing. The future felt uncertain. Yet she had helped anyway. Walter smiled. And that's why I'm here. David slid an envelope across the table. Thicker than a greeting card. Thinner than a legal file. Nothing about it looked extraordinary. Until Walter spoke again. Open it. Jasmine hesitated. Then carefully lifted the flap. Inside sat a cashier's check. Her eyes widened immediately. The amount was larger than anything she had ever held. Not enough to make someone wealthy. Enough to change breathing patterns. Enough to erase sleepless nights. Enough to create options. Real options. Jasmine looked up. Speechless. The veteran raised a hand before she could respond. No. The word arrived with a smile. You don't get to refuse until I finish talking. Laughter rippled through the diner. Even Jasmine couldn't help smiling. Walter pointed toward the check. This isn't a reward. Then he pointed toward her. It's gratitude. The distinction mattered. Because one felt like charity. The other felt like respect. Jasmine swallowed hard. Emotion rising faster than expected. But Walter wasn't finished. Not even close. David reached into the folder and removed another document. This one carried Ava's name. And the moment Jasmine saw her daughter's name printed across the page, she realized the check wasn't the biggest surprise waiting for her. Jasmine stared at the document. Then at Ava's name. Then back at Walter. For several seconds, the words on the page refused to make sense. Not because they were complicated. Because they were impossible. At least they felt impossible. The scholarship covered academic support. Tutoring. Technology assistance. Summer enrichment programs. Mentorship opportunities. Resources that could follow Ava. For years. Not weeks. Not months. Years. Jasmine's hands trembled slightly. The paper suddenly felt heavier than it should. Walter watched quietly. Giving her time. Some moments shouldn't be rushed. This was one of them. Finally she found her voice. Why would you do this? The question came out barely above a whisper. Walter smiled. Not the smile of a businessman. Not the smile of someone making a deal. The smile of a grandfather. The smile of someone remembering another time. Another person. Because somebody once did it for me. The answer surprised her. The veteran looked down briefly. Then nodded toward a framed photograph David had placed inside the folder. A young Walter stood beside an older man wearing a military uniform. The picture looked decades old. Edges faded. Colors worn. Yet clearly treasured. My father. His voice softened. He came home from the war with almost nothing. A pause. Couldn't find work. Another pause. Couldn't pay bills. The diner had become completely silent. Even the cooks were listening now. Walter continued. One family helped us. His eyes lingered on the photograph. They didn't ask for anything. A faint smile appeared. They simply decided we mattered. The sentence landed differently than everything else. Because it wasn't about money. It wasn't about success. It was about being seen. Being valued. Being remembered. Walter looked at Jasmine. People think generosity starts with wealth. A small shake of his head. It doesn't. His finger tapped the table once. It starts with a decision. The word settled deep. Because Jasmine understood exactly what he meant. The night before, she hadn't felt generous. She hadn't felt noble. She had simply seen someone struggling. And chosen not to ignore it. David slid another paper across the table. This time it wasn't financial. It wasn't related to Ava. At first glance it looked like an employment packet. Jasmine frowned. Confused. Then she noticed the logo. The Hayes Veterans Foundation. She looked up. Walter nodded. We have a community outreach center 15 minutes from your apartment. A pause. They need help. Jasmine blinked. Slowly. What kind of help? David smiled. The kind you've been doing your entire life. The answer made her laugh. A nervous laugh. Because she still wasn't sure this was real. Walter leaned back. We help veterans find housing. A pause. We connect families with resources. Another pause. We support people during difficult seasons. His eyes met hers. And we need someone who knows how to care about people. The diner seemed to disappear around her. The sounds. The customers. The coffee machines. Everything. Only the conversation remained. Jasmine looked down at the packet. Full-time position. Benefits. Predictable schedule. Training provided. The salary alone made her heart skip. Not because it was extravagant. Because it was stable. For the first time in years, she saw stability. A future she didn't have to survive 1 week at a time. Walter noticed her expression. You don't have to answer today. Jasmine laughed again. This time tears mixed with it. I don't even know what to say. That's normal. The veteran smiled. I wasn't expecting a speech. A few people nearby chuckled. The tension eased. But the emotion remained. Strong. Very strong. Because beneath everything else sat one simple truth. Somebody had noticed. Not her uniform. Not her job title. Not her financial problems. Her. The person behind all of it. That realization affected her more than the money ever could. A few minutes later, Walter stood. The meeting was ending. The documents remained on the table. The scholarship. The job offer. The check. Opportunities she had never expected. Opportunities she never asked for. The veteran extended his hand. Jasmine stood as well. Instead of shaking it, she hugged him. The reaction surprised both of them. For a brief moment neither moved. Then Walter gently returned the embrace. The diner erupted into applause. Not loud. Not theatrical. Warm. Heartfelt. The kind people give when they witness something good. Something rare. Something worth remembering. Hours later, Jasmine drove home. The old Honda still rattled. The transmission still complained. The vehicle hadn't changed. Yet somehow everything felt different. The road looked different. The sky looked different. Even the future looked different. When she picked Ava up from school, her daughter immediately noticed. Children always notice. Mom. Jasmine smiled. Yeah. Why are you crying? That made her laugh. Because she hadn't realized tears were still there. She wiped them away. Then knelt beside her daughter. I got some really good news. Ava's eyes widened. Good. Very good. The little girl grinned. Then threw her arms around her mother. Satisfied. Children don't need details to understand happiness. They simply recognize it. That evening they celebrated with pizza. Nothing expensive. Nothing fancy. Just something they rarely bought. The two of them sat on the living room floor eating slices from a cardboard box. Laughing. Talking. Dreaming. For the first time in a long while, those dreams didn't feel impossible. Months passed. The seasons changed. Life slowly improved. Jasmine accepted the position at the foundation. She discovered she loved the work. Every day brought another veteran. Another family. Another chance to help somebody get back on their feet. The job never felt like work. It felt like purpose. Ava flourished. Her grades improved. The scholarship opened doors neither of them knew existed. And every now and then, Walter would stop by the outreach center. Never with cameras. Never with reporters. Usually carrying coffee. Sometimes donuts. Always humility. One afternoon, nearly a year after their first meeting, an elderly veteran entered the center. His clothes were worn. His expression tired. His circumstances difficult. The receptionist asked if he needed assistance. The man nodded. Quietly. Jasmine walked into the lobby. For a moment, she saw a familiar look in his eyes. The same look Walter carried that night in booth 7. Pride fighting hardship. Dignity struggling against circumstance. Without hesitation, she crossed the room. Pulled up a chair. And sat beside him. Not across from him. Beside him. Then she smiled. The same smile she had offered a stranger in a diner. The same smile that changed everything. Let's see what we can do. The veteran looked relieved. Not because his problems were solved. Because somebody cared. And sometimes that's where healing begins. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home, Jasmine sat alone in her office. A photograph rested on her desk. Ava. Walter. And herself. Taken during a community event. 3 people connected by one small decision. One meal. One moment. One act of kindness. She looked at the photograph and smiled. Because she finally understood something. The greatest gift Walter gave her wasn't the check. Or the scholarship. Or even the job. It was proof that compassion matters. That character matters. That doing the right thing still matters. Even when nobody is watching. She paid a stranger's bill when she could barely pay her own. The following morning changed her future. But the most valuable thing she received wasn't money. It was a reminder. Kindness has a way of finding its way home.